the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever shall believeth in him shall have everlasting life and not perish. Just like that. As always, my friends, welcome to my mania. Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's Jake Johnson coming to you live from the internet, hiding somewhere off the coast of North Carolina for your pleasure. What's happening? How's things going in your neck of the woods? It's a great Sunday. It's great. Ready to get some action going. Ready to get that atheist up on the pedestal in the hot seat and show him what for. A 1-2 punch. We're getting close to the end, though. We ain't got just a few videos left, and we'll be at the end of Genesis. So, where we go from there is up to you. Hey, April, what's happening, darling? Good to see you. Glad you could make it. Won't be long. We're right close to the end. I think there's 50 videos, and we're on number 44. We got a couple more to go, but we're getting close. We got some time to talk about it, decide what we want to do. We can either continue on in this vein with the book of Exodus, or we could go find another debater with a little higher skill level and tear him apart, or we could add another Bible study so we could have 2 days instead of one. Your choice. Got the boys. Still Kev's watching the game. Sounds good. Sounds like fun. I am the game. At least in my world. And I'm watching the game. So I guess we got something in common there. Let's see how we're looking. Oh yeah. Coming right along. Yes, you are, she says. I'm something anyway. So how you been doing today? What you been up to? I love you too. For me, every day is pretty much the same. A little sleeping, a little eating, a little researching, a little working, a little podcast, a little TV watching. That's about it. I'm basically a monk. Been busy, huh? Well, tell me about it while people roll in. Tell me what you got going on. You got your boys with you? That must be nice. I'm ready to get this atheist. Tell him a thing or two. Is Mama coming tonight? Do you know? I said, wake up and listen to the man. I got lots to talk about. Ask Kev who's winning the game. We need a sports update. Alrighty then. Well, I'm going to go ahead on and get started since you don't want to talk about it. Let's see what the atheist has to say. Atheist?
Genesis 44. Joseph's brothers are united once again, but they still haven't figured out that the rich Egyptian man feeding them is Joseph. They gotta figure it out soon, right? Well, not before the theft of a lifetime. Now Joseph gave these instructions to the steward of his house. Fill the men's sacks with as much food as they can carry, and put each man's silver in the mouth of his sack. Then put my cup, the silver one, in the mouth of the youngest one's sack, along with the silver for his grain. And he did as Joseph said. Joseph is just sabotaging Benjamin's life. He gave him 5 times the amount of food as everyone else. Now he's sticking his silver goblet in Benjamin's bag?
Yes, that's what brothers do.
Genesis 44. Joseph gave silver for his grain, and he did as Joseph said. Joseph is just sabotaging Benjamin's life.
Yes, he is giving his little brother the maximum amount, the whole portion, if you will, because he loves his little brother, not because he's sabotaging his life. And as you'll see, these people will be well taken care of for the rest of their lives under Joseph's care. He's not sabotaging anybody. He's doing a kindness, more so than they ever did for him, I might add.
He gave him 5 times the amount of food as everyone else. Now he's sticking his silver goblet in Benjamin's bag?
Yeah.
The brothers are so gonna beat him up when they find out. If they get caught, it's gonna look like all the brothers stole money and the littlest one stole a goblet.
Hey, what's up, Kev? Yeah, it might look that way, except for Joseph will not allow that to happen because they're in his care and he runs the show. So you're wrong all the way around.
Like a biblical heist. Side note, I was looking at a book of biblical commentary when going through this chapter, trying to make sure I didn't miss anything, and the author had a special insight into the phrase, my cup, my silver cup. The author literally said this, and I'm quoting, "The double formulation highlights both the fact that the goblet is Joseph's special possession and that it is made of silver." Hard-hitting analysis right there. Remind me not to waste money going to seminary. There is an interesting literary...
Don't waste money going to seminary school. You know why? Because if you read the Bible, you'll learn everything you need to know. It's in the Bible. You don't need someone to tell you what it says right there in plain English. Old English, but English. Translated English, but English.
Thing going on here, though. These brothers kept wanting to pay Joseph for the food he's selling them, and every time he secretly gives them back their money. Remember that when the brothers sold Joseph into slavery back in Genesis 37, they sold him to the Ishmaelites who were going to Egypt for 20 shekels of silver. They've been carrying that guilt for years, and now no matter...
Hello, Connor. Hello, CJ. Glad to see you're studying the Bible at such a young age. Good to have you. And by the way, Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery, and he will not allow them to pay for their meals. He keeps giving them their money back and adding a little to it, as to show them he doesn't need their money because he's above them. Just like in his dream when he was a little boy and he said that you will all bow down to me. That's what's happening.
How hard they try, they cannot give that money back to Egypt. As morning dawned, the men were sent on their way with their donkeys. They had not gone far from the city when Joseph said to his steward, "Go after those men at once, and when you catch up with them, say to them, 'Why have you repaid good with evil? Isn't this the cup my master drinks from and also uses for divination? This is a wicked thing you have done.'" The sabotage is on. He planted the cup, now he's going to accuse them of theft.
Only to get them back to Egypt. Only to keep them from leaving. He's not actually going to charge them with a crime. He's messing with them. They deserve it. They sold him into slavery. They plotted killing him. They deserve it.
He's like a cop who turns off the body cam before planting drugs on a suspect. Totally corrupt. What a weird line about divination to feed the servant. You guys stole this cup. My master drinks from it and attempts to see the future with it, even though that's not a real thing. I still want it back.
I think you need to look up what divination means. I'm just saying.
When he caught up with them, he repeated these words to them. But they said to him, "Why does my lord say such things? Far be it from your servants to do anything like that. We even brought back to you from the land of Canaan the silver we found inside the mouths of our sacks. So why would we steal silver or gold from your master's house? If any of your servants is found to have it, he will die, and the rest of us will become my lord's slaves." Oh no. Bye-bye, Benjamin. And if old promises still hold up, bye-bye Reuben's 2 children. It is a fair point, though. Why would we steal a cup when we return silver on our own? Your accusation makes no sense. How come no one's asking why this servant was tailgating them at all? "Very well then," he said. "Let it be as you say. Whoever is found to have it will become my slave."
Again, he's just messing with them. None of this is actually going to happen.
"The rest of you will be free from blame." Bad compromise. The servant could have had 10 brother slaves and the corpse of number 11. Instead, he's aiming for 1 brother slave and nothing else. That's why he's the servant, but Joseph is the master. Wait, I know what Benjamin can do. Okay, hear me out. Sit on the sack and just say you can't get up because you're on your period.
Well, that might work if he was a girl, but he's not a girl, so stop it.
It worked last time. Does it make any sense? No. Has that ever stopped the Bible from saying something anyway? No. Each of them.
In what way does it not make perfect sense? In those days, they didn't have Tampax or tampons or whatever, or maxi pads. In those days, you sat on a pot or you sat in the river. That's the way it worked. So her making that complaint would have been totally normal. And the guy would have been like, "Ew, I don't want nothing to do with that." So it worked. However, this is a different situation. Number one, the bad stuff wasn't actually stolen by Benjamin, and it was the girl who actually stole the false gods. And number two, Joseph is just messing with them anyway because he already knows they didn't steal it. So this is just a ruse to get them back to Egypt.
And quickly lowered his sack to the ground and opened it. Then the steward proceeded to search, beginning with the oldest and ending with the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. At this, they tore their clothes. Then they all loaded their donkeys and returned to the city. Really? Their response to Benjamin being accused of theft was tearing their shirts? Don't rip off your clothes in the middle of a journey.
They don't wear shirts. They wear robes and they open in the middle. And to tear one's clothing is a figure of speech, a Hebrewism, if you will. It means to show grief. They can just cinch it back up.
Wait till you get home. I do like the order there. They tore their clothes in a fit of rage. Then they packed up their donkeys like nothing ever happened and turned around. How come no one's making a big deal about the silver in their bags this time? That should still shock everybody. Doesn't even get a mention. There's an important lesson to learn here. Before you go on a trip, double check what's in your bag. You would think these brothers would have figured that out after the last time when money magically appeared in their bags later on.
Well, you see, when you haven't done anything wrong, you tend not to think like a criminal. That's how.
How did they start traveling and not know what was in their luggage? As a brown person, I promise you, I have never made that mistake while traveling.
Nobody gives a shit whether you're brown or not. You don't have to remind us. We can see.
They are so gonna get it when they return home to Jezreel, because they're gonna arrive without Benjamin, which was the one thing they said they would never let happen. But first, they gotta go back to Joseph to apologize for their klepto brother. Joseph was still in the house when Judah and his brothers came in, and they threw themselves to the ground before him. Joseph said to them, "What is this you have done? Don't you know that a man like me can find things out by divination?" "Yeah, don't you know I can only see the future using this cup, even though I can't?" Joseph is such a bad actor. I mean, I know I'm reading the lines, but you can tell. By the way, all of Joseph's brothers just bowed down to him, just as he said they would in a dream a long time
Imagine that. It's almost like Joseph is in the right here, isn't it?
ago. This story has come full circle, and none of the brothers realize it. "What can we say to my lord?" Judah replied. "What can we say? How can we prove our innocence? God has uncovered your servant's guilt. We are now my lord's slaves, we, ourselves, and the one who was found to have the cup." They're all slaves now? What happened to "you go home, we'll keep Benjamin"? I thought that was the deal. Look at Judah throwing Benjamin under the bus there. "We're your slaves now. Us and this guy right there who stole stuff." Did the other brothers agree to this, or did Judah just offer all of them up as slaves without their consent? No one gets consent for anything in this book.
That's because they're not little sissies who grew up in the 20th century who need consent for every little thing. Most of them have the understanding of the knowledge of the fact that they're all in this together. That's what brothers are. Not that you would know that, but
But Joseph said, "Far be it from me to do such a thing. Only the man who was found to have the cup will become my slave. The rest of you, go back to your father in peace." See? Joseph knows the deal. But that's actually way worse, because the last thing these brothers want to do is go home to Jezreel without Benjamin, the only son who really matters. So the entire rest of this chapter is going to be Judah trying to tell the rich man from Egypt, his brother Joseph, that he cannot have Benjamin because it will devastate daddy. Then Judah went up to him and said, "Pardon your servant, my lord. Let me speak a word to my lord. Do not be angry with your servant, though you are equal to Pharaoh himself. My lord asked his servants, 'Do you have a father or a brother?' And we answered, 'We have an aged father, and there is a young son born to him in his old age. His brother is dead, and he is the only one of his mother's sons left, and his father loves him.'" Yes, just pour on the guilt like it's honey. "Then you said to your servants, 'Bring him down to me, so I can see him for myself.' And we said to my lord, 'The boy cannot leave his father. If he leaves him, his father will die.' But you told your servants, 'Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you will not see my face again.' When we went back to your servant, my father, we told him what my lord had said." Yes, just keep that beehive buzzing with all the honey. "Then our father said, 'Go back and buy a little more food.' But we said, 'We cannot go down. Only if our youngest brother is with us will we go. We cannot see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us.' Your servant, my father, said to us, 'You know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One of them went away from me, and I said, "He has surely been torn to pieces," and I have not seen him since. If you take this one from me too, and harm comes to him, you will bring my gray head down to the grave in misery." So much honey. Winnie the Pooh just had an orgasm.
let's just see how you feel when you're faced with your child's death. Or your second child's death. Imagine you'll be a little dramatic too. I wouldn't be counting that out so quickly.
I don't even care that Jezreel had way more than 2 sons, and said that he'd be deeply upset if Benjamin didn't return, not that he would die. So now, if the boy is not with us when I go back to your servant, my father, and if my father, whose life is closely bound up with the boy's life, sees that the boy isn't there, he will die. Your servants will bring the gray head of our father down to the grave in sorrow. Your servant guaranteed the boy's safety to my father. I said, if I do not bring him back to you, I will bear the blame before you, my father, all my life. Now then, please let your servant remain here as my lord's slave in place of the boy, and let the boy return with his brothers. How can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? No, do not let me see the misery that would come on my father. I can't believe half this chapter was Judah telling Joseph everything that has already transpired. What a waste of everyone's time. The
No, that's what happened.
only interesting thing at the end there was Judah saying, take me instead. Let Benjamin go, but I'll stay. Like this is some biblical Beauty and the Beast situation. But this fits perfectly with Judah's story, because he's the brother who initially suggested selling Joseph into slavery. Now he's becoming the slave. Karma's a bitch. Speaking of a new Judah, since when does he care about his father's misery? For years now, he's been perfectly willing to let his father suffer the fake loss of Joseph without a problem. Honestly, if Joseph is smart, he'll let all the brothers go home because he'll realize this family talks way too much and they're all insane, and when they sold him off, he was actually the lucky one. When is Joseph gonna do
Yeah, but family's family, and you miss your family regardless of what they done. You know that well as I do.
the big reveal? It could have happened chapters ago. Have you ever seen a movie with a big misunderstanding that could have been resolved within the first 5 minutes if only the main characters had the tiniest bit of common sense? Like, Home Alone would have been a 10-minute movie if the parents just double-checked some stuff.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't have been a movie because that's real life, not a movie. This is real life, not a movie. You're reading the records of a real person who lived and did stupid things and smart things. I don't know why you have a problem with that. You keep referring to it like it's a narrative, like somebody invented the story and they're dumb for inventing it that way. But that's not what's happening here. This is a recording of an actual event, and it happened that way.
Well, Joseph still hasn't said, it's me. So we must be somewhere in the middle of that film.
Must be. But you have to wait and see. But again, I stress this is not a film. It's reality.
Genesis 45. Is Joseph finally gonna tell his brothers who he is?
Eventually.
At the moment, he's threatening to keep his youngest brother Benjamin as a slave while the other brothers go home. But they know damn well they cannot return without Benjamin. Judah just spent half the last chapter pleading with Joseph to take him instead. What will Joseph do? Then, Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence!" So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence.
Imagine. They just realized that the guy that they sold into slavery to be killed off or whatever is standing before them, ruler of Egypt. They don't hold a candle to this guy. I'd be terrified too.
I can't believe we had chapters worth of buildup, and then Joseph just says it. He can't hold.
I mean, it's a book. So why can't you believe there were chapters worth of buildup? Would you rather it be a pamphlet? I mean, it's a book. That thick. Lots of chapters. Come on, man. Come on, man.
Hold it in. Forget the drama that was building up. Forget holding his little brother as a slave. Sentences into the chapter, he's like, "You guys, it's me." This is such terrible writing. It's like if halfway through a murder mystery, the killer just pops up and says, "I did it." Roll credits.
It's like if someone were writing down every little thing that happened in someone's actual life. Roll credits.
Also, do you know how hard you have to cry that people next door hear you? Either you're in mortal danger or you're kind of faking it.
Well, they lived in stone houses without any insulation or windows for that matter. So probably not that loud, but whatever.
This is the third time Joseph is openly crying, and it just gets bigger every time. I wish the Bible came with pictures, though. It would be fun to see the dropped jaws of every brother.
So just take a screenshot and then look at it and you'll know what that looks like. Like you're about ready to put something in your mouth.
What is up with Joseph's question? Is my father still living? He is living. You know how I know that? Because Judah just told Joseph that like 2 sentences ago. It's at the very end of Genesis 44. Judah says, I need the boy to come with me or else father would be miserable. And now Joseph responds with, is he alive? Were you not listening? I know a lot of Christians don't read the Bible, but why aren't the people in the Bible reading the Bible? Then
Because the Bible didn't exist when they were alive? Because it was written about them? That might be.
Joseph said to his brothers, come close to me. When they had done so, he said, I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will be no plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. The brothers are still like, I get that Joseph is very forgiving here, but remember that he's also put those brothers through hell and back. He's made them take these long journeys home, putting some of them in prison, but he knew who they were the whole time.
Oh, poor brothers. Considering he's about to extend them life-giving food for the rest of their lives that they don't have to work for after they sold him into slavery, thereby ending his family ties. After all of that, he's going to rescue them from famine. I think he feels like he deserves a little comeuppance, a little payback, and he'd be right.
He's had time to process this. They have not. They should be furious. And if Joseph is saying God is the one who sent me here, why was he messing with his brothers the whole time? He should have put God in prison for something.
Can't put God in prison. God invented everything. There's not a prison that would hold him. Second of all, why would the brothers be furious? They're the ones in the wrong. They should be humble, ashamed, and apologetic. That's what they should be. Nothing more. Hey, Darlene, how are you? Good to see you.
That dude deserves it. Do you know how many genocides he's done so far? And if God's on his side...
You go back and read this Bible, boy. God has not caused one genocide. That's all man. God just told him how to deal with it. Man caused genocide, not God.
Why isn't Joseph Pharaoh? I want one of those brothers to ask, how do you know there are exactly 5 more years of famine? And is that gift of prophecy genetic?
No, it's not. And how he knows is because God told him and gave him the tools wherewith to prepare for it. Put him in the place to be able to prepare for it, to save his people. Famine is there for a reason, because of the corruption in the world. This was one of God's attempts to cleanse the corruption. It will ultimately end in a flood, destroying everything. But until then, he will try everything first. This is one of those attempts.
Then it was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household and ruler of all Egypt. Now hurry back to my father and say to him, this is what your son Joseph says. God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, don't delay. You shall live in the region of Goshen and be near me. You, your children and grandchildren, your flocks and herds, and all you have. I will provide for you there, because 5 years of famine are still to come. Otherwise, you and your household and all who belong to you will become destitute.
Now you see, Joseph in his good grace is going to care for his entire family for the rest of their lives. He's going to use his riches to lift them up out of famine. That sounds like a pretty noble thing if you ask me.
The brothers are still like... You have to admit, though, this is pretty generous. Joseph is telling them he'll look after their dad in his old age. You don't always get volunteers for that one. And he'll take care of all the brothers. Not bad. If someone tried to drown me, then sold me into slavery, I'm not sure I would share my lottery winnings with them. How many...
And you wonder why God won't talk to you. Have you ever stopped and asked yourself that maybe the reason you don't feel the blessing of God is because you're not worthy of it? Maybe you should try a little less hard to pat yourself on the back and a little more hard to please the Father who created you, and you might find out that He'll bless you.
People is Joseph inviting to Egypt? This is already a big family, and we're not even talking about grandkids or wives or slaves. And if Joseph is filthy rich and he's trying to help out the family, why not send other Egyptians to collect their stuff and bring it there? I mean, why is he making them take another long journey? That seems like a thing rich people avoid when possible.
No, you can't avoid some things. And in those days, they didn't have lorries or big trucks. They had horse-drawn carriages. So it doesn't really matter who does it. It's going to get done the same way either way.
See for yourselves, and so can my brother Benjamin, that it is really I who am speaking to you. Tell my father about all the honor accorded me in Egypt, and about everything you have seen, and bring my father down here quickly. Still, nothing from the brothers, but at least Joseph is rubbing it in. Go home and tell Daddy that I'm the real success in this family. Then he threw his arms around his brother Benjamin and wept, and Benjamin embraced him, weeping. And he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. Afterwards, his brothers talked with him. It took 15 verses for them to say something. I hope at least one of the brothers is like, "You son of a bitch." When the news reached...
Why would he say that? He's the one that did it. I bet all of the brothers are thanking him profusely, which is what they should be doing. It's called gratitude. Maybe you should try learning some of that.
Pharaoh's palace that Joseph's brothers had come, Pharaoh and all his officials were pleased. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Tell your brothers, do this, load your animals and return to the land of Canaan, and bring your father and your families back to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you can enjoy the fat of the land." The fat of the land technically means the cream of the crop, the best part. And
Yeah, I think we caught that.
it's the name of an album by Prodigy. So you can't say the Bible doesn't have useful information. Does anyone really care what Pharaoh says at this point? I mean, he's technically in charge, but I think we've established that Joseph is the real leader here. And he's already made all these promises. So Pharaoh coming in and saying all the same stuff just seems pointless.
No, Joseph is second to the leader. If the leader decided for some reason that he wanted to lop off Joseph's head, it would be done. Yes, Joseph is the real leader, but he does not have the authority that the Pharaoh has. You should learn that about hierarchies. And the Pharaoh is agreeing with Joseph, which is a good thing. That means that the actual leader of the land is in support of what Joseph is doing because he recognizes that Joseph just saved his life. You should recognize that also, which is why he's bringing his family in to save their lives also.
It's almost like Joseph did all the research for the group project, but now here's Pharaoh coming in and giving the whole presentation as if this was his idea all along. You are...
As most leaders do, you know that. You can't get a fair shake when someone's over you, but that's just the way it is. It's called politics.
We're also directed to tell them, do this. Take some carts from Egypt for your children and your wives, and get your father and come. Never mind about your belongings, because the best of all Egypt will be yours. You know, if this was a prank, this would be hilarious. Bring everyone from Canaan to here. Don't bring your stuff. You're moving in and we'll cover all your needs. What if they arrived only to hear Joseph say, "Ha! Just kidding! You sold me into slavery. You think I'd seriously let that go? Good luck getting your old apartment back now." You know.
Again, I say, has it ever crossed your mind that this may be why you not have a good relationship with God? Because you hold grudges. Joseph doesn't. He's going to bless his family regardless of what their past sins were, because he's the more righteous man. Try righteousness for a while. Walk in God's path, and you will find out that the whole world will open up to you. Everything you need will be provided for. This is allegory of what God does for all people, not just these people. Keep that in mind when you get destitute, and you will. Happiness only lasts for a short while. The world will always throw traps in your way. It will always get hard. And when it gets hard, you're going to need somebody to lean on. I hope you're smart enough to figure out who that is.
Pharaoh and Joseph are rich. Joseph's extended family is about to move into wealth. Meanwhile, there's a famine and all the other Egyptians must be struggling. Even in biblical times, capitalism was broken. So the sons of Israel...
No. Egypt stored up grain for a long time. They have many storehouses so that Egypt can eat. Egypt became a great nation during this famine. The golden era that history likes to teach you about being the beginning of Egypt, it's not. It occurred during this famine. That's when they became the golden era, because they had food when everyone else did not. They were able to prosper when everyone else could not. Egypt was the place to be at that time. So no, capitalism is not broken. Capitalism is the thing that saved their life.
Israel did this. Joseph gave them carts, as Pharaoh had commanded, and he also gave them provisions for their journey. To each of them, he gave new clothing. But to Benjamin, he gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 sets of clothes. And this is what he sent to his father: 10 donkeys loaded with the best things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain and bread and other provisions for his journey. Then he sent his brothers away, and as they were leaving, he said to them, "Don't quarrel on the way. Don't fight. Even though I just gave the youngest brother a ton of cash and extra clothes for being genetically closer to me. And even though I gave Daddy 20 donkeys full of everything amazing. Just deal with it. Should be easy. You spent half the chapter going like this. Just keep that up during your entire journey. By the way, if one of you stole another goblet from me, I will cut you." Why is he sending 10 donkeys full of the best things of Egypt?
You know, I think I like you better when you're sitting there with your mouth open. Can you just do that again?
They're all moving to Egypt. Joseph is giving them heavy luggage that they'll need to carry on both legs of the journey. What's the point?
That's how journeys worked in those days. If you're going to be traveling for days, you need food and water and shelter. You have to carry that with you because there's not a motel on every corner. Think about where you're at. Use a little common sense, my friend.
Leave it there. Don't drag it back and forth. So they went up out of Egypt and came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan. They told him, "Joseph is still alive. In fact, he is ruler of all Egypt." Jacob was stunned. He did not believe them. But when they told him everything Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts Joseph had sent to carry him back, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. And Israel said, "I'm convinced. My son Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die." Jezreel's switching names back and forth very quickly now. He was skeptical at first, but when he saw all the gifts, he decided to go along with it. I mean, maybe he's still skeptical, but at this point, why argue? Take the money. The passage quotes him as saying, "I'm convinced," but maybe he was crossing his fingers when he said it. What if he said no? What if he said, "I'm old, I'm at least 120 years old, I'm tired, I don't feel like moving to a new place and uprooting my whole life just to see Joseph again"? What would happen? What if the Bible just ended right now?
I really, really feel sorry for your family. If this is the mentality that you have, if this is the moral compass that you live your life by, I really feel sorry for your family.
This entire chapter basically wrapped up a storyline we saw coming a long time ago. Joseph is reunited with his brothers, and the whole family will be back together soon. But there are still a few chapters left in Genesis, so there's still gotta be more twists to come, and a couple more deaths, and maybe a few more totally boring lists of names. We are so close, though.
Yeah, well, imagine that. We are close. We are getting there towards the end. But I don't think you've learned anything for some reason.
Genesis 46. The family reunion is finally happening. As far as I know, there are no issues we need to resolve, which means it's time for the Bible to throw more genealogy at us. Why, God, why? So Israel set out with all that was his.
Why, God, why? So you can understand. That's why.
And when he reached Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. Given the number of people traveling with him, he could totally sacrifice at least half his sons and no one would notice. Beersheba, if you recall, is the place.
Why would you even think about something like that? Nobody's sacrificing any sons. That's a horrible thing to say. What's the matter with you?
Where Isaac once built an altar in Genesis 26. So maybe Jezreel thinks if he offers sacrifices, he too will get to talk to God. Good luck with that. And God spoke to Israel in a vision at night and said,
well, apparently it worked, so luck received.
"Jacob, Jacob." "Here I am," he replied. Huh. It worked. I mean, kind of. If you just spent all day building an altar hoping to talk to God, you'll probably dream about it too. Saying God spoke in a vision at night is the closest the Bible will ever get to saying we're just making all this up.
They're not just making all this up, and I don't think that's how dreams work. There's been many times I've thought about things all day and had no dreams at all about them. That's not how dreams work. Dreams are autonomous. They work subconsciously. Prophetic dreams are different. They come from God, which means you might not even be asleep when they occur.
Even God, who said his name would be Israel, is calling him Jacob now. I still can't get over how they all respond to
Israel is a title. Jacob is his birth name. They call him Jacob so that you know who they're talking about, because Israel is used 3 different ways in the Bible. Talking about a man, talking about a people, and talking about a nation. That's why. Not because God doesn't know his name.
God that way. Here I am. If God spoke to you right now, your response would not be the same as if you were answering a random phone call.
It would be if that's the way you spoke in those days. And in those days, translated from that language to ours, "here I am" is an example of saying hello, or what's up, or over here. That's just the way they talk. They don't talk like we talk. And they didn't have phones, so they wouldn't have known how to answer one.
"I am God, the God of your father," he said. "Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there. I will go down to Egypt with you, and I will surely bring you back again, and Joseph's own hand will close your eyes. Why does God have to announce himself? Who else would it be?
Well, in those days, they didn't know for sure because they had fallen away from God for many generations, and this is him reestablishing contact with his people. They all know about God, but they haven't heard from him in many years. So that's why he would have to announce himself, and also so that Jacob could distinguish his prophetic dream from a normal dream, because a normal dream won't proclaim to be God. I promise. I've had 47 years of them. Not one of them have ever said they were God. That's why.
Genesis 26, God said to Isaac, I am the God of your father Abraham. I love how he has to clarify that he's the same God your father worshipped, just in case there's any confusion.
Well, there might be, because there were a lot of false gods in those days. A lot. And possibly some smaller demigods on earth during those times. So, yeah, it would be normal for him to want to establish who he is.
All those other gods out there. And why does God need to reassure Jacob about going to Egypt? He's already on the journey. That's like.
Also, one other thing I'd like to point out, a caveat. Man invented the word God, not God. His name is something else. And when he said that word, not God. So you need to understand that we call things gods that are not God. There are entities that are alive in this universe. There were beings in those days that were worshipped. And because we understand poorly of our history, we have named them gods, such as Thor and that sort of thing. His father, Kronos, Baal, and Beelzebub, and I can't think right now, but you know what I'm saying. There's lots of entities, the fish god and the Dionysus and things like that. So when God established who he was, he used the name, the forbidden name, which is most likely I am, to establish who he was, the God of Jacob and the God of Abraham, God of Isaac. Meaning that when he calls himself the God of Abraham, he's talking about a covenant that he made with Abraham. You understand? So when he says, I am the God of your father Abraham, meaning you are part of the bloodline that I hold this covenant with. He doesn't hold that covenant with everybody, just Abraham. So God's name is very powerful. Yes, it is. Just saying it will kill you. God is all powerful. Well, I don't know if it'll kill you or not, but it has a lot of power for sure. And there are several names attributed to God, but the one that he used for himself is I am that I am. However that translates into that language, that's the expression he used to call his own name. But we call him several different things.
Being up in the air in the middle of a cross-country flight and someone telling you, you should get on that plane. Like, that would have been more useful a few days ago. Now it's useless. I've already acted on the advice you didn't give me in time. What kind of reassurance is God giving him? Go to Egypt, because if you go, I'll ride shotgun and then you'll return to Canaan and die. But at least you'll die with your long-lost son by your side. Spoiler, Jacob will die in Egypt. So God's not surely bringing him back home. God's a liar. Unless we're counting the journeys of corpses, which I would argue does not count.
You would be incorrect. It does count. And also, offspring counts. And as sure as I am standing here today, or sitting here, Jacob's offspring did go back to Canaan. And then onward to other places. Tonius, you're the one speaking the wrong side of Genesis in brief in ways masking blatant truth. Am I now? Well, care to misspell your reasoning behind that? I'm not speaking mistruth. I'm speaking from the Bible. You should probably look into it if you think I'm wrong. And I will accept if I'm wrong. And I will say I'm wrong if I'm wrong. But you have to prove it or don't speak. I don't mind if you speak, but have something to back it up. Don't just throw insults in my direction because I don't care. I'm here to learn and to teach. That's my purpose. So if you think I'm wrong, show me, or else don't bring it up.
Take my dead body to New Zealand, I don't get to call that a vacation. Then Jacob left Beersheba, and Israel's sons took their father Jacob and their children and their wives in the carts that Pharaoh had sent to transport him. So Jacob and all his offspring went to Egypt, taking with them their livestock and the possessions they had acquired in Canaan. Jacob brought with him to Egypt his sons and grandsons and his daughters and granddaughters, all his offspring. We are at the point where we are using the names Israel and Jacob in the same sentence. This is such an unnecessary thing that could have been easily fixed.
It's not unnecessary at all if you don't understand the geography and the circumstances behind the naming of Jacob to be Israel. Again, I'll tell you, Israel is a title. The reason that they use it in the same sentence as his name, his birth name, is because the word Israel is used 3 different ways in the Bible. Talking about a man, talking about a people, and talking about a nation, depending on where you're reading from the Bible. So if you're a person who is uneducated and you have a Bible in your hands and you're trying to learn the truth, it will behoove you to know who's being talked about here and where that came from. So if you're later in the Bible and you're reading about Israel, the nation, that has no meaning to you unless you know where the name came from. From Jacob, who began the nation, begat the nation. You understand? Israel is a title. Jacob is a name.
How many people is this? We need to know. And how long is this journey? And what do you do with the diapers? Okay, here we go. It's time.
There were no diapers, and if there were, they'd toss them on the wayside or bury them in a hole. That's what you do with waste. Why does that matter? You keep seeming to forget we're in ancient Egypt. They didn't have motels on every corner. They weren't in a car. They were walking or riding horseback or in a cart.
For a bunch of names. We got to get through Jezreel and all his sons.
Also, get a map. Look up where Canaan is and look up where Egypt is, and you will know how far of a travel it is. I don't think that the region is still called Canaan to this day, but there are maps that have old locations on it. Some of them, some Bibles have them in the back of the Bible, but you can find it. Not hard to find.
These are the names of the sons of Israel, Jacob and his descendants, who went to Egypt. Reuben, the firstborn of Jacob. The sons of Reuben, Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. Oh my God, I cannot take this anymore. He had 4 boys. Maybe he had daughters, but they don't matter. The sons.
They do matter in the sense that they have children who become names. The people that are named in the Bible are part of the story. If they don't do anything that involves the story, they don't get named, male or female. It's not a sexist thing. It's an importance thing.
Of Simeon, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohud, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. Gotta mention that she's a Canaanite, because
Yes.
these people care about their purity test.
They don't. They care about bloodline because it's important. Because the bloodline determines who is covered under the covenant made with God. And also, God told him not to mix with Canaanite women. And he did anyway, which is why it's important to name it out.
Again, 6 boys, no girls that we know of. This is so boring, isn't it? Somehow the people writing the Bible saw all those earlier genealogies and thought, let's do that again. I won't give the ages of these kids or their birth dates to make it impossible to track everything. Just a long list of first names only, because I'm helpful.
Actually, they didn't use last names a lot in those days. If you got a last name, it was most likely your occupation or what your family is known for, or a nickname or something to that effect. That didn't come into popularity until much later. Even in Jesus' time, they didn't use last names a lot. In certain places they did, like in Rome, but some people still only used one name. That's probably why they didn't give last names. And also, it doesn't matter when they were born. What matters is the lifespan of their patriarch, the person who sired them. That's what matters. And that is given. And if you know how to read, you can find dates for most of these things. You can add them up based on the years that they lived.
The sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The sons of Judah, Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. But and Onan had died in the land of Canaan. The sons of Perez, Hezron, and Hamul. And Onan did die. Died for no reason at all, and Onan died for jizzing on the floor. Ah, memories. By the way, that just said Levi had 3 sons. But later in the Bible, in the book of Ezra, it's going to mention another one, Mali. Though other parts of the Bible say Mali is the son of Merari. Does anyone care at this point?
Yes, and let me explain how this works. At the time of the writing of this Bible, Levi only had 3 sons, this book. Later, he had another one. And then at the time of the writing of that book, it was mentioned. Now, as far as the name thing goes, you know that people used names like we do today. And I'm willing to bet that there's someone else with your name in this world, just like there's someone else with my name in this world. And considering that these families were close-knit, they probably shared the ideas. And, you know, when I was born, there was a kid in the same place I was born that was born at the same time, whose mother named him exactly the same thing as I was going to be named. And my mother had to change my name because she didn't want 2 people with the exact same name and the exact same birthday running around. That happened. So it's not that unheard of. It's not that they're saying that he's somebody else's son. There was more than one person with that name. Simple.
The sons of Issachar, Tola, Puah, Job, and Shimron. The sons of Zebulun, Sered, Elon, and Jaleel. These were the sons Leah bore to Jacob in Padan Aram, besides his daughter Dinah. These sons and daughters of his were 33 in all. We are at 33 descendants, and we are not done yet.
No,
They should not.
because they did it right in those days. When they had babies, they had babies. Another thing I would like to point out, since you seem to not be aware of it, the Bible is not a chronological book. It jumps back around on itself quite a few times. You have to be smart enough to follow it. It's not chronological. It doesn't go from A to B. It goes from A and then jumps all the way around and ends up at B.
Have bought a Prius. Not enough space. The sons of Gad, Ziphion, Haggai, Shuni, Esbon, Ari, Arodi, and Arilai. The sons of Asher, Jimnah, Ishua, Isui, and Beriah. Their sister was Sarah. The sons of Beriah, Heber, and Malkiel. These were the children born to Jacob by Zilpah, whom Laban had given to his daughter Leah, 16 in all. That is 16 descendants via a slave who may not have wanted anything to do with Jacob. 15 boys and 1 girl, which is...
You have no evidence of that, one. And two, it didn't matter in those days. She was a slave, meaning she was his property, meaning it was his discretion, not hers. And three, she probably felt lucky to have a man of stature give her children, because giving children in those days was highly important, especially to the success of a woman. I'm not saying I agree with it, I'm just saying that's the way it was.
About as genetically and statistically improbable as you can get. But if we're just making everything up, let's keep going. The sons of Jacob's wife Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. In Egypt, Manasseh and Ephraim were born to Joseph by Asenath, daughter of Potipharah, priest of On.
Well, if they were making everything up like you keep claiming, they did an awful good job, because you can go through history, a completely different set of texts, and find most of these people existed in the order that they exist in the Bible. Most of these places exist, and the ones that they haven't found yet is because they haven't found it. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So if they made all this up, they did a really good job at loading the deck before it was shuffled, if you know what I'm saying.
Sons of Benjamin, Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Ehi, Raush, Mupam, Hupam, and Art. These were the sons of Rachel who were born to Jacob, 14 in all. There were boys named Mupim and Hupim. This does not get the attention it deserves. The sons of Benjamin get mentioned a few different times in the Bible, and they never have the same list of names. This one has 10 names, but other times his list of sons is as low as 3. Like, no one in the Bible company is really keeping track. It's possible some of those sons are really grandsons, but it's all very confusing.
Really? So they are keeping track, it's you that isn't keeping up, because it's possible that you just don't know what you're talking about. You see, number one, they didn't have a word for grandchild or grandfather in those days. They used the word son or father. So, yes, it's entirely possible that there were some of them grandsons and great-grandsons and great-great-grandsons, considering they lived so long. However, it's also possible that some of them weren't born yet, or some of them have died, in which case they wouldn't be listed. This is called a narrative. And whoever's writing it will write down what they know. It's also possible the writer didn't know all of them. Could be that. But most likely, I would tell you that the Bible is right way more than it's wrong. So if I was you, I'd lend credence to what it's saying.
Don't give us complicated, confusing information when you're not even careful about how you do it. But okay, another 14 people, 12 boys, 0 girls. Totally normal ratio there. The son of Dan, Hushim. That's it? There's not another dozen kids waiting in the wings? Huh. That seems...
Not everyone had a pack. Some people only had one child. But most people tried to have several, because the more children you have, the more successful you are.
Seems both normal and, for some reason, very disappointing. Dan's family tree is as complicated as his name. The sons of Naphtali, Jaziel, Guni, Jazer, and Shillam. These were the sons born to Jacob by Bilhah, whom Laban had given to his daughter Rachel, 7 in all. Another slave, another 7 descendants, all male. All those who went to Egypt with Jacob, those who were his direct descendants, not counting his sons' wives, numbered 66 persons. With the 2 sons who had been born to Joseph in Egypt, the members of Jacob's family, which went to Egypt, were 70 in all. A 70-person road trip. That sounds horrible. How do you pick which podcast you listen to? Do you know how many times you'll have to stop because someone needs to use the bathroom? In the book of Acts in the New Testament, they give the number of travelers here as 75. No explanation for the contradiction.
Could have been the wives.
Though when you're on a journey that long with that many people, I suppose it's possible some of them just conceive along the way. What else are they supposed to do? I read one.
It's funny how you doubt the Bible and then end up agreeing with it at the end. I love how you do that. Cast doubt, sow doubt, then agree with it, as if none of this ever happened. The reason you do that is because it's telling the truth and you know it. And there's no way around that. So if you don't do that, you look disingenuous. That's why you do it, consciously or otherwise.
Bible commentary that said we shouldn't worry about counting exactly 70 people because the Bible just approximates. They like to round, which made me laugh only because
It should, because it was a man that told you that, not the Bible.
young earth creationists go crazy trying to pinpoint the exact date and time God poofed the world into existence.
At least they're trying.
Meanwhile, these people are like, how many people is that? 6 dozen? I can't deal with that many. Did I count that kid twice? You know what? Just say 70. It's close. Next thing you know, the 10 Commandments was actually 6. They just rounded up. Now,
It might have actually been 15. Because if you remember correctly, when Moses came down from the mountain and saw the state of his family and what they were doing, he broke some of them. Who knows what were on those tablets?
Jacob sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to get directions to Goshen. When they arrived in the region of Goshen, Joseph had his chariot made ready and went to Goshen to meet his father Israel. As soon as Joseph appeared before him, he threw his arms around his father and wept for a long time. They needed directions, as if it was possible they might get lost. With 70 people! Why didn't you get the directions before you started the trip? Israel said to Joseph, now...
Just think about that for a minute. You live in the middle of a wilderness, and you're going to travel through the wilderness to get to another wilderness in the middle of another wilderness. How are you going to get directions to it before you leave? You go that way. That's as close a direction as you get. And if you know landmarks, you might find it accidentally. Or you might veer off course and end up somewhere else. They did have roads in those days, travel areas, so they could at least follow that. But they didn't really know where they were going. They didn't have a compass. It's a miracle they made it there as many times as they did.
I am ready to die, since I have seen for myself that you are still alive. I haven't seen you for years. I thought you were gone forever. Now we're reunited. Sure, we could catch up and spend time together. Or I could just die, and that would be cool too. Then Joseph said to...
That's the same thing as saying, I could die happy now. I've fulfilled this and this and this. It's an expression. It doesn't mean literally die. He means he is fulfilled. He gets to see his son alive. Nothing else would be better. If he died now, he wouldn't be missing anything. That's what he's saying. Very simple.
To his brothers and to his father's household, I will go up and speak to Pharaoh and will say to him, my brothers and my father's household, who are living in the land of Canaan, have come to me. The men are shepherds. They tend livestock, and they have brought along their flocks and herds and everything they own. When Pharaoh calls you in and asks, what is your occupation? You should answer, your servants have tended livestock from our boyhood on, just as our fathers did. Then you will be allowed to settle in the region of Goshen, for all shepherds are detestable to the Egyptians. Why do they have to go through a job interview after Pharaoh himself invited them to come here? What's with that tiny bit of bigotry at the end there? Tell Pharaoh you're shepherds because Egyptians hate shepherds, and then you'll get to live in Goshen. Well,
probably a smart move considering that's where he wants them to be, and considering that that place is probably ruled by people, and the Egyptians are in charge, so maybe he knows how to manipulate them and get what he wants out of them. Simple as that. Also, everyone wasn't present when the Pharaoh told them to come, so everyone doesn't know that.
After all that, at least we have something to look forward to now. Jezreel is gonna die. Eventually. After a grueling road trip with 70 people, give or take a lot, I can't say I blame him.
Well, that's the end of those 3 videos. Please take a moment and hit that like button and subscribe and press the bell icon so you'll get notifications of when I'm going to be here. Smash that like button like it owes you money. It owes me money. Believe me. And share this video with somebody you love. Hey, share it with somebody you hate. That's fine. Leave a comment down below. Challenge me, question me, curse me, bless me. Challenge yourself. Let's have a conversation. Just let me know you're thinking, because that's ultimately what I want to do, cause you to think. And if I've helped you in some way and you would like to help keep me here doing this for a living, please go to paypal.me/JakeJohnsonBand. Every little bit helps, and I do need it, so I would appreciate your parsonages. Also, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and Sunday, I'm here at 8:30 and then 8 on Sunday. So be sure you check out my new videos coming out soon. We are nearing the end of this, so we're going to have a conversation about what you want to do later on. You want to keep going, or you want to move on to something better? Either way, let me know. And with that, I'll take your comments and questions. What's happening, everybody? Sorry, I'm busy with the boys. I'm listening, though. Hey, I'm here. That's fine. Hey, darling. Ectonius seemed to want to question my knowledge there, but I didn't see him get back with me on what he thought I was so wrong about. Funny how that works out. I'm waiting, though. I'm here. Anything you want to question, I'll take it. What'd you guys think? Y'all enjoy that one? Let's see if I missed anything in chat. Uh-huh. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Well, I can't scroll. There we go. That looks like I got it all. Wonder what he thought you said wrong. I don't know. He didn't respond. I gave him the option. I don't even know if he's still here. I think he just popped in to say I'm wrong and then popped out. That's not a way to win an argument. He's probably one of the Atheist's fans and just wanted to get a dig in at me before he left. But he came, so that's all that matters. Maybe something sank in. I have gotten to the point the atheist is no longer funny and he is just disrespectful. That's true. I want to consider that when we consider our next moves, because we're coming up on the end of Genesis. Won't be too much longer, a few more videos, and that'll be it. Maybe another weekend, maybe two. I think it goes up to 50, and then he starts on Exodus. So if you guys want me to continue in Exodus, or if you want me to find another debater, or if you want me to just add another Bible study, and that way we'll have two instead of one, it's up to you. Sunday and Monday is about the Bible, however you want to cut it. Whatever you like, I'll do, because that's what I'm here for. I don't know. I'll have to watch again. Well, you're welcome to do that too. They're always there. And unless YouTube takes me down, they always will be there. It wouldn't surprise me these days the way YouTube is acting if they didn't take me down, but they haven't yet. So far I've been under the radar of the algorithms. I'll start gaining a wider audience and they'll probably start looking closer at me, though. We'll just have to see. Either way, I'm tickled to death about being here. I like it. Exodus is a great book. I would prefer it without the atheist. Well, we could do that. If you want to, we could do Old Testament on Sunday and New Testament on Monday. And since we've just went through the book of Genesis, we could just start in Exodus. It's entirely up to you, and I may do that. they will take you down if you raid the Capitol. Ha! They might take me down for saying those words. We don't have free speech anymore. We're soon to not have the Second Amendment, which is supposed to protect the First Amendment. You like that idea? Okay, that's 2 votes for it. What say you, Darlene and April? You want me to do Old Testament on Sunday, New Testament on Monday, or you want me to find another debater, or you want me to keep going with the atheist? I vote for just reading myself. That's 3 votes for it. The people have spoken, so let it be written, so let it be so. What's that from? Do you know? Do you know? Do you know? I'll give you a hint. It would be better if I were bald when I said it. So let it be written, so let it be so. 10 points to whoever can tell me what that's from. I'll give you another hint. There's less than 11 of them in the name. Sounds good either way. What do you see or think would be the best, Jake? I'm with you. I think we should go with what everybody as a whole wants, and what that seems to be is me doing the Old Testament on Sunday and the New Testament on Monday. That way we can cover more ground. So I'll just, after we finish up with the atheist, then I'll just start with the book of Exodus on Sundays and then continue with the New Testament on Mondays. Pharaoh said it. Yes, but where did he say it? You're so close you can taste it. I like it all. I concur. Sweet. I'll give you a bonus 10 points if you can tell me Pharaoh's real name. Come on, look. Go whammy, go whammy, go. Jack. Jack. What? No, it's not Jack. John. Matthew. Oh, you mean for Monday, the New Testament will be, I think we're in John. Yeah, we just started John. So Sunday will be Exodus, Monday will be John. Oh, his name, who knows? His name is Yul Brynner, and it's from the Ten Commandments movie. So close. Yeah, that's debatable. It could be Ramses II. It's definitely within the time frame according to what we've uncovered. But it's also possible that it was someone else before Ramses, the guy Ramses the first replaced. There were 2 pharaohs named Ramsey, back to back. It's him and his son. but there was somebody before him, and it's possible that that's when it occurred, but it's also possible that it occurred during Ramses II. So nobody actually knows because it's kind of iffy. Egypt has done a real good job of screwing up the dates and making everybody confused about when what happened because they don't believe they've been here as long as they have been. And Egyptology, as a rule, is set up to keep things hidden, not to reveal things. So it's kind of hard to follow along with that. But yes, there are people who think Ramses II was the pharaoh during the time of the Exodus. But I was talking about a movie. And I did know that other pharaoh's name, the one before Ramses I, but I can't remember it right off the top of my head. But one thing I know about, and that is that the Sphinx used to be a dog. It used to have a dog's face. And then at some point, it either broke or they decided to recarve it and put a man's head on it. And a lot of people think that that man was Khufu, but I don't. I think that was done to honor Joseph, who was ruling Egypt at that time. And I think that they changed the Sphinx to honor him because, number one, the Sphinx has all of the earmarks of the tribe of Judah, which would be the lion, their signet, and also the face of a man, and also it's in Egypt where they were. And it's also looking directly at the constellation of Leo, which it would have been at that time 2,500 years ago. So I think, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, but based on some things that I've read, it's a good opinion, that the Sphinx was altered to honor Joseph, whose name would have been in those days Imhotep in Egyptian. So if you ever read about Imhotep, you're reading about Joseph. Now, there's a couple of other things in Egypt that are attributed to him too, namely the storehouses, which are off the beaten path and not part of the tourist trap. They don't let you see those as a general rule when you go as a tourist to Egypt. You just get to see the pyramids and the Valley of the Kings and things like that. A couple of the temple at Karnak and things like that. But if you go off the beaten path in certain places, you will find these deep holes that are dug into the ground and they have slots all the way up, like for flooring. And they're made so that you can raise the flooring as you go. And those are silos. They're underground silos to keep grain. And that's what Joseph had built to store up grain during the famine. And they've been there a long time. Most of them are full of trash now, but they are grain silos. And I like to find those things that are off the beaten path in Egypt because there's a lot of really cool things that you never get to see if you're a tourist or if you're just looking at pictures. Like the fact that there's never ever once been a body ever found in any pyramid on Earth in Egypt. I mean, sports update: Bucks 23, Saints 20. Go Bucks! Put some cocks in your ear. It's a sports day time of year. That's your logo. Put some cocks in your ear. I'm gonna make you a T-shirt. Also, if the pyramids were tombs, then why were all, and I do mean all, of the pharaohs buried in the Valley of the Kings with tombs? Why is that? Why would they have two tombs? You can only bury one body. It's weird, isn't it? I'll tell you why. Because the pyramids were never tombs, they were something else. What that something else is, I don't know, and neither does anybody else. Yes, the Sphinx was around during the flood, and it's been there a long time. Yes, Napoleon did cannon the face, but it's not what I'm talking about. If you look at other sphinxes in Egypt, they're all with the jackal face. You know, the big ears and the big pointy nose. Uh, that would be Anubis. And so the Sphinx in the Giza complex, which has been there for a very long time, was at one point altered to have the face of a man. And when Napoleon came up in Egypt, it already had the face of a man, and he just knocked the little beard off of it with his cannon shots. So yes, he did assault the Sphinx, but he's not responsible for it being changed from a dog to a man. That happened a long time ago. No disrespect, sorry. And rats. What about rats? Why are you saying rats? I didn't catch that. Oh, never mind. I thought you said snake. Nope, didn't say snake. Hmm. Now we were talking about Napoleon blowing up the Sphinx, shooting at it, using it for target practice, which they did do. But he's not why that it has a man's face. That face is, if you look at it, it's out of proportion. It's the wrong size for that body. It looks weird. It looks that way because it was carved there for whatever reason, whether the nose broke off of it or whether they chose to do it on purpose. I don't know because there's no history written about it. But nonetheless, it now has a man's face on it. It did not used to have a man's face. It used to have a dog's face. So it's my belief that the reason they did that was to honor Joseph, who saved their lives from a very long famine. And also being second only to the Pharaoh, he would have been honored in a lot of ways. He even has his own special little tomb there with a little pyramid built over it. About it being around a long time. Yeah, it's been around for a very long time. Since the flood, anyway. No, I didn't say snakes. I said sphinx. That's probably what you heard when you say sphinx. That sounds kind of like snakes. But it's probably been here since before the flood. It definitely has been here a lot longer than they say it has because it has a certain amount of water damage on it, and it hasn't rained in Egypt of any significant amount in 10,000 years. So it had to be there during a downpour of some kind in order to get the kind of water damage it has on it. And the most recent event that makes sense would be the flood. So Egypt itself is a lot older than they claim it is. And the Sphinx has absolutely been there longer than they say it has. I've learned to not listen to Egyptology at all because every one of their explanations seem to be to cover up the truth rather than to say what the truth is because they're all over the place and they don't make any sense. I don't like sphinxes and snakes, and that ain't what it takes to love me. Why did it have to be a snake? I hate snakes, said Indiana Jones. All right, so we've made a decision. After we finish up with Genesis and the Atheist, and I will complete it, we'll go all the way to the end. Then we'll start anew that Sunday after that with the reading of Exodus. And we'll begin from there and go all the way through the Old Testament on Sunday. And on Monday, we'll go all the way through the New Testament. That way, we'll kill two birds with one stone. Two stones. Two birds with two stones. Sure, why not? Ba da ba ba da ba 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 da ba 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 da ba da ba da ba ba da ba 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 da ba 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 da ba. You guys are awesome. You know that? I hope you know that. I'm very fortunate to have you in my life, and I'm grateful. And thanks for your support. Remember that guy on TV? There was a wine cooler commercial. Can't even remember which wine cooler, but it was one of those Larry, Daryl, and Daryl guys. He's saying, thanks for your support. I miss those days. Back when they had a Motel 6 and they'd leave the light on for you. Boom, 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 boom. When prices were so low, they were insane. Yep, them were the good old days. I guess every generation thinks that about their childhood. It's kind of weird to see it happening now in my life, though, because I grew up listening to old folks talking about the good old days and their childhood. And all of a sudden, here I am talking about the good old days in my childhood. And one day, my kids will be thinking, Jesus Christ, I'm glad we made it through 2020. Sports update. Bucks 30, Saints 20, fourth quarter. Go Bucks. Put some cocks in your ear and never fear, you're here for the sports update. Yeah. I'm excited about the new format. I'm wondering how it will go. Exodus, if I'm not mistaken, Exodus and Deuteronomy and Numbers and all them books are pretty war heavy. Kings and judges. That's when they talk about all the wars that occurred. That's going to be an interesting read. Talk about a sports update. Ooh, there's a lot of going and coming in them books. Anyway, that's the nature of the beast, as it were, and I'm out of ideas. So I'm going to cut it early tonight. Get ready for tomorrow night where the good stuff happens. I love you guys. I've had a great night tonight. I hope you've had as much fun as I have. One more time for the cheap seats. Please press all the buttons and do all the things and go to paypal.me/Jake Johnson Band if you want to support this ministry. Now, I'll see you guys bright and early at 8:30 Monday morning. That's tomorrow. Well, we're going to get through the book of John, get started on it anyway. I love you true. Have a great night. God bless you. Be peaceful and love each other. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.